Hi guys, this is your girl Wakeji Kamore and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. We are currently studying the book of second chapter, which we are covering chapter by chapter. Today, I'll be reading chapter 15 and afterwards I will share my main takeout. Please stay with me until the end and don't forget to invite your friends to listen in by sharing this link. All right, so in the previous chapter, which was for chapter 14, we see David reconcile with his son Absalom, even if he kind of just wanted for him to come back to Jerusalem and stay at a distance, but they finally reconciled. But in this next chapter, which is chapter 15, we are going to see that Absalom was not kind of content with the fact that they had just reconciled. He wanted more. He wanted more than just the reconciliation. Anyway, let's see. Let's read. It says, after this, Absalom, okay, can we just call him Absa? Mimi hizi majina za watu ni ngumu sana. Absa bought a chariot and horses, and he hired 50 bodyguards to run ahead of him. Like seriously, 50 bodyguards to run, not even, like, my goodness. He got up early every morning and went out to the gates of the city. When people brought the case to the king for judgment, Absa would ask where in Israel they were from, and they would tell him their tribe. Then Absa would say, "You've really got a strong case here. It's too bad the king doesn't have anyone to hear it. I wish I was the judge. Then everyone could bring their cases to me for judgment, and I would give them justice." Umeona Absa, umemwona 18 vile anajaribu kufanya, anajaribu kugain love ya watu. So he's going to the city gates, he's telling people, "Oh, you have a case, which tribe are you from? Oh, how are you?" Like, he's just like really being nice to people. And then saying, "Oh, you have a good case, and if I was the judge, I would have given you justice." But unfortunately, the king doesn't have anybody to listen to your case. Oopsie. Yeah, that's what he's doing. When people tried to bow down before him, Absalom wouldn't let them. Instead, he took them by hand and kissed them. Unaona sasa hiyo story? Sasa instead of bowing people, now he's kissing people's hands. Sounds like a politician. Absalom did this with everyone who came to the king for judgment, and he stole the hearts of all the people of Israel. Politician. After 4 years, Absalom said to the king, "Let me get to Hebron to offer a sacrifice to the Lord and fulfill the vow I made to him. For while your servant was at Geshur in Aram, I promised to sacrifice to the Lord in Hebron, if he would bring me back to Jerusalem." All right, the king told him, "Go and fulfill your vows." So Absalom went to Hebron. But while he was there, he sent secret messengers to all the tribes of Israel to stir up a rebellion against the king. "As soon as you hear the ram's horn," his message read, "you are to say, 'Absalom has been crowned king in Hebron.'" Unaona hiyo story? He took 200 men from Jerusalem with him as guests, but they knew nothing of his intentions. While Absalom was offering the sacrifices, he sent for Ahithophel, one of the David's counselor who lived in Gilo. Soon many others also joined Absalom, and the conspiracy gained momentum. A messenger soon arrived in Jerusalem to tell David, "All Israel has joined Absa in conspiracy against you. Then we must flee at once, or it will be too late." David urged his men, "Hurry, if we get out of the city before Absa arrives, both we and the city of Jerusalem will be spared from disaster." "We are with you," his advisors replied. "Do what you think is best." So the king and all his household set out at once. He left no one behind except 10 of his concubines to look after the palace. So the king has gone, he's left 10 concubines to look after the palace. The king and all the people set out on foot, pausing at the last house to let all the king's men move past to lead the way. There were 600 men from Gath who had come with David along with the king's bodyguard. All right, let's pause right there. You guys remember these 600 men? These are the 600 men from Gad who came to David in the caves. These are the 600 men who are downcasted, who didn't fit in communities, who had debts, who are vagabonds, ndio hawa 600 men, they were still with David. That for me is a really good thing. So the 600 men packed up their things and they went with David as well. Then the king turned and said to Ittai, a leader of the men from Gath, why are you coming with us? Go on back to King Absa, for you are a guest in Israel, a foreigner in exile. You arrived only recently, and should I force you today to wander with us? I don't even know where we will go. Go on back and take your kinsmen with you, and may the Lord show you his unfailing love and kindness and faithfulness. But Ittai said to the king, I vow by the Lord and by my own life that I will go wherever my lord and king goes, no matter what happens, whether it means life or death. David replied, all right, come with us. So Ittai and all his men and their families went along. Everybody cried aloud for the king as the king and his followers passed by. They crossed the Kidron Valley and they went out towards the wilderness. Zadok and all the Levites also came along, carrying the ark of the covenant of God. They set down the ark of God, and Abithai offered sacrifices until everyone had passed out of the city. Then the king instructed Zadok to take the ark of the God back into the city. If the Lord sees fit, David said, he will bring me back to see the ark and the tabernacle again. But if he is through with me, then let me do what seems best to him. The king also told Zadok the priest, look, here is my plan. You and Abiathar should return quietly to the city with your son Ahimaaz and Ahibadhar's son Jonathan. I will stop at the shallows of Jordan River and wait there for a report from you. So Zadok and Abiathar took the ark of God back to the city and stayed there. David walked up the road to the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. His head was covered and his feet was bare as a sign of mourning. And the people who were with him covered their heads and wept as they climbed the hill. When someone told David that his advisers Ahithophel was now backing Absalom, David prayed, "Oh Lord, let Ahithophel give Absalom foolish advice." And we will see that happen very soon. When David reached the summit of the Mount of Olives, where people worshipped God, Hushai the Archite was waiting there for him. Hushai had torn his clothing and put dirt on his head as a sign of mourning. But David told him, "If you go with me, you will only be a burden. Return to Jerusalem and tell Absalom, I will now be your advisor, O king, just as I was your father's advisors in the past. Then you can frustrate and counter Ahithophel's advice. Zadok and Abiathar the priest will be there too. Tell them about the plans and plans being made in the king's palace, and they will say their sons Ahimaaz and Jonathan to tell me what's going on." So David's friend Hushai returned to Jerusalem, getting there just as Absalom had arrived. All right, this feels like many words, many people. Let me just break it down for you guys. So Absalom has gained the hearts of the Israelites, and he has decided he wants to be crowned as king. So he has gone to a different location, and he has told people that immediately they hear a ram's horn that they will just shout that Absalom had been crowned king. So David gets to hear this, and he decides, let me just run away from Jerusalem, because if I stay, then Absalom is going to come and fight, and then we are going to ruin this city for no good, and people are going to just lose their lives. There's going to be bloodshed. The city is going to be destroyed. So let me just leave. So he leaves. And when he's leaving, first the 600 men that had been initially his men came with him, which is great. And one of them was Ittai, who vowed to be with David no matter whatever it is that had happened. And then one of David's advisor, his name Ahithophel, had gone to be the advisor of Absalom. Like he'd betrayed him and gone to Absalom's side. So David is just like, oh Lord, how I pray that this guy gives Absalom wrong advice. But also to protect himself, and just so that he knows what it is that is happening in Absalom's reign, or rather his kingdom or his palace, he sends in spies. And these spies are, let me just read their name. There's Hushai, and then there's this guy called There's Hushai and who? There's actually just Hushai. So he sends in Hushai and tells Hushai, go to Absa and tell him that you will also be an advisor, just as you advised me. So Hushai goes and says to Absa, I will be an advisor just like I was your father's advisor. On top of that, David sends in 2 priests and tells them, you just go and be stationed in Jerusalem. Go and stay there. This guy, who is Hushai, whatever it is that they make plans in the palace, see, he's gone there and frustrated the advice of that Ahiv something guy. I don't know, his name is long. Let me look for his name again. I even forgotten his name. It's long. I've forgotten. Oh, Ahithophel. He's frustrated Ahithophel's advice and counsel, and whatever it is that has been decided in the palace, this Hushai guy would run to the priest and tell the priest this is what is being planned in the palace. And these 2 priests would send their sons to David to tell them this is what is being planned in the palace. So kuna spies when you wako kwa palace, kuna spies kwa temple. Na spies wa temple ni priest wanatuma masons zao kwenda kuambia David zile vitu zinafanyika kwa palace. Are we together? I hope that we are up to that point. It just sounded like a lot of many people and not understanding what it is that they are being told to do. Anyway, so in chapter 12, God outlines what would happen or what would be the consequences of David's actions of sleeping with Uriah's wife and killing him. First, it was the death of his illegitimate son, which already happened in chapter 12. Then God was going to cause David's own household to rebel against him, which is what we see happening in this chapter. And lastly, God would give David's wives to another man before his very eyes, which we are going to see happening in the chapter to come. In this chapter, which is chapter 15, Absalom rebelled and conspired to be king, and David took his family and fled to Jerusalem. I think one of the things that I really find interesting is that despite all that has happened in David's life, I mean, this guy has had many victories, and by this he has become the most famous king to ever have lived. But notice that in all these victories and in all this fame, that he still had the loyalty of the 600 men who are with him in the ditches, who are with him in the bushes, who are with him in the caves when he was fleeing from Saul. They were still his men, and he still valued them. And they were still like, we are loyal to you and we are going to move with you from wherever it is that you move, as in whatever happens. Sisi tuko hapa na wewe. How many of us shake off old friends when we get a slight salary increment? Ukiongezwa tukasalo kidogo hivi. No, you can't, I mean, your friends can't afford to dine with you in the places that you can afford, because they no longer dress like you, you ditch them. How many of us have changed our circle of friends when we progress in life? Now, you can only hang out with the high and mighty because you have progressed in life. You can only hang out with celebs like you. Normal civilians don't seem to understand your life as a celeb or life as a rich person or life as a famous person and what it takes to be you. But David had such loyal friends. My goodness, this is just amazing that the 600 men that were with him in the caves, all that time when he was like young, he was running away from Saul, are still there. They're still there even today, and they still follow him around. They still are his men. They're still in his army. They're just like, tuko hapa kufa na kupona, we are with you. If anything, ask yourself, what can be said of you as a friend? What can be said of you as a friend? Are you a good friend? Are you a kind of friend who abandons your friends when you're in a new relationship? Are you the kind of friend who abandons your friends or changes your friends because you've now gotten a little bit more money than they have? Are you the kind of friend who just usually like, you guys are no longer in my circle of friends because your status has changed? What kind of friend are you? What can be said of you as a friend? This is your girl Wakeji Kamore, and this is Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. See you tomorrow.